It's great to have you with us from wherever you're tuning in from. For more information about Elevate Church or to contact us, head to our website elevatechurch.me and take us wherever you go by downloading our Elevate Church AU app. We hope this message inspires and helps you to take your next steps in your journey.
Hey, good morning. So it seems like spring has unsprung. During worship, Louie was, did you hear? She was like, God, let it rain, let it rain. I'm like, shush! Stop it! Silly prayer. Anyway, hey, great to have you here. Before we get into the message, something that we announced last week, a new feature in our app, our Elevate Church AU app, which incidentally, if you don't have our app, you can scan the flow code on the seat back in front of you and you'll get it. And you'll discover a new section, message notes. So every week, and there's one there today for today's message, we're posting up the message notes. It's not a transcription. It's not like dictation. Just the key bullet points, the big idea, the key scripture references. And you can follow along if you want to. But the better thing, or the thing that we've certainly got already since last week great feedback about, is people are able to go away and just review. Like, oh yeah, what was that scripture? Or what was that big idea? And at the bottom of each notes section, you can actually make your own notes. You know, what is God saying to me? What's something I need to maybe take an action step about? So that's in our app, message notes feature. It's all there for you. Now, here's the question. I need to warn you. It's for adults only. Have you ever started something that you invariably didn't finish? Yeah, okay, good. All right. I mean, you know, some of you might prefer just to answer that to yourselves, but, you know, and there's the classic, you know, that I'm going to get healthy, you know, everyone in January, the gyms are full, February, the gyms are empty, all that sort of stuff, you know, and I bought the treadmill and it's the best clothes hanger I've ever used in the middle of winter. I can hang my clothes on the treadmill. It's brilliant, you know. Anyway, that's the thing. Kind of tried and tested. Money management, that's another classic. You know, this year we're going to get better at managing our money. So you do what the adults do and you make a plan. And you think, okay, how can I sort of boost my income maybe, reduce my expenses maybe. Maybe you want to start an emergency fund so you declutter and sell some things on eBay or Gumtree or Facebook Marketplace, all the things. You do all the things. And it's going well. And then the Black Friday sales roll around, and come on now, who could resist a bargain? And you find yourself back where you started. So, you know, the list goes on, but it's really a reminder, and you all know this, there's no point pretending. The fact of the matter is, it's almost always easier to start something than it is to finish something. And incidentally, and as I talk about, you know, getting healthy or getting better finances, but I've also seen this in church life over 30 plus years in church life. People that are maybe coming in new and they discover that Jesus is awesome and they put their faith in Jesus, and like you can see like life transformation almost happening before your very eyes. They make sure they're here every Sunday. They start serving, they start giving, like they start reading their Bible, doing all the things. And not everyone who starts that very journey following Jesus goes on to finish it. And sadly, I have seen countless people either fade out gradually or in some cases flame out spectacularly. And it's very sad. I mean, I could sit here and go, but it's very sad because God has something that He wants us to keep moving towards, His plans, His purposes in our lives. And we won't ultimately get there. We won't ultimately arrive and become the person that God's called us to be and do the things He's called us to do if we don't learn to finish well. And you only finish well if between the starting and the finish, guess what? You commit to continuing. So today I just want to give us 2 pro tips from the early church on how to finish well. So If you've got the Bible app installed on your smartphone, you can scan this flow code. It'll take you to Acts chapter 20. Now, just to remind us, or those of you that are new here to catch you up, we're teaching this series, God is on the Move. And we're looking and taking inspiration from the early church, which this book comes immediately after the 4 biographies of Jesus' life and ministry. It's kind of like the sequel. Like after Jesus left, this is what happened next. And it's very much a highlight reel, like the highlight and lowlight reel of the early church. And we're specifically looking at the second half of this, because early this year we looked at the first half, a series called I Love My Church. This series, God is on the Move, is all about the second half. And one of the key characters in the second half of the book of Acts is a guy named Paul. Now, Paul he was a Jewish religious leader. He had a spectacular real life encounter with Jesus. He put his faith in Jesus and ultimately went on to become one of the leaders, if not the sort of most effective leader of launching new churches around the world. And when you look through the second half of this book of Acts, you'll read that Paul went on 3 what we would now call missionary journeys. Last week we looked at the first one that he went on. He went into the area of Asia Minor, which we now call modern day Turkey. Now we're going to pick up where Paul's on his he's just wrapping up his third and final missionary journey. And actually he's ultimately setting sail to head back to Jerusalem. And he's making stops along the way to places that he's visited before, places where churches are being established from scratch, stopping in for a few days a week to encourage them. This is the journey that he's on his way back to Jerusalem. One thing that's interesting, and I'm going to unpack this, is probably the most significant city in Turkey or Asia Minor at the time is a city called Ephesus. It was like a port city, and it was like the major port city of the region. And Paul had previously gone there, arrived in the port, and check this out, arrived in the port city of Ephesus, stepped off the boat into the city as the first ever follower of Jesus, ever in that city, like patient zero. Nobody had heard about Jesus. I mean, come on now. That's not easy. Hello, I'm here to tell you about Jesus. They're like, who? Like literally the first person. And he established a church there. He spent 3 years in there at that area, discovering and developing and deploying leaders before he then moved on to the next place. And there's a church there. Well, on his way sailing back from Asia Minor to Jerusalem, he chose not to stop in at Ephesus. I'll explain a little bit about why that was the case. But what he did do is he arrived at a place called Miletus, and he actually sent for the leaders of the church in Ephesus to come to him. So he went past Ephesus. He wanted to meet with the leaders of the church in Ephesus, but he didn't stop in Ephesus, and instead he stopped up the road and asked them to come and visit him, which they did. And he started to give them some more instruction and some more lessons about what they now need to continue to focus on as leaders of the church in Ephesus. And so when the leaders of the church in Ephesus arrived, Paul declared, now, you know that from the day I set foot in the province of Asia until now, I have done the Lord's work humbly and with many tears. How about you read the underlined bit along with me? I have endured the trials that came to me from the plots of the Jews. Let's be like Paul, everybody. Trials, pray for trials. So this is what Paul's declaring to them. You know that I experienced trials and that I endured trials. So this is Paul's pro tip number 1 to finishing well. It's live courageously. See, not only did it take Paul courage to go into Asia Minor as the first ever follower of Jesus, start churches, from scratch with enemies coming at him. Not only did starting take courage, but he's reminding them, he's declaring to them that I continued that. I didn't quit. I didn't back down. I continued doing the things that God had called me to, even when it was difficult, even when on paper, I had every good reason to quit, every good reason to back down. You know that I didn't. I learned to endure the trials. It takes courage to finish well. It takes courage as a Jesus follower to keep going, because Jesus followers are not exempt from or immune to trials. Hello. Now, look, I don't know if you got plans this afternoon. If you haven't, you want to do some bed rotting, go home, pull up your screen, head onto the YouTubes. You will find some Christian YouTube channels where you will see the hashtag blessed, not stressed. And they will tell you, follow Jesus and everything is sunshine and rainbows. Nothing bad's ever going to happen to you again. God, it's just going to all be good things, trials, stress, challenges. No, they're in the past for you. They're for other people. No, you follow Jesus. You're all about hashtag blessed, not stressed. Now, here's the thing. That might be a great way to grow a YouTube channel. I don't know, never tried it. Prefer telling the truth, because here's the problem. It's literally not true. Are we reading the same Bible here, people? Did they just skip the second half of the book of Acts? I don't, what? No, it's not true. And here's the other thing. If you skip or try to orient everything in your life to skip the trials. I'm all about the comfort. I don't want to be stretched. I don't want to ever feel fear. I don't want ever to have challenges. Here's the problem. You will actually short circuit your growth. Self-inflicted limitations. Because here's what I've observed from my own life and other people's lives. You grow more in the valleys than you do in the mountaintops if you don't quit when you're in the valleys. And one of the mistakes that we make when we're in the valleys is we do this one. Oh God, why is this happening to me? Which is an okay thing. He's got big boy pants. God's not going to be like, oh, I don't like it when my kids tell the truth. If that's what you're thinking, say, God, why is this happening to me? But here's the reality. He won't always answer that question. He might sometimes because you've been an idiot. And you're in the valley of some very poor decisions that you made. It's a little thing we call consequences. Hello. There's other times where we did nothing wrong. And yet God has allowed us to be in the valley, and he doesn't choose to tell us why. So, okay, you can sit around, why is this happening to me? This prayer is sponsored by Kleenex. But there's actually a better prayer to pray in the valleys. God, what are you showing me? How are you growing me? What can I learn in this? Like, I didn't vote for it. I didn't sign up for it. I'm not having fun yet. But if I'm going to be here, at least let me take something with me out of the valley. What is that? What is it that I can actually take with me on this journey? I'm not going to quit, God, just so we're clear. But I want to learn something. I want to grow. I want to actually get beyond this place. And so Paul's bragging to the church leaders in Ephesus, you saw me do it. I learned to endure the trials. I was there. I did this thing. Now, remember, Paul went around the port of Ephesus, the port city of Ephesus, and instead summoned the church leaders to come visit him. And it's kind of like a bit of an ongoing head scratcher. Like, why did Paul do that? Why would Paul not want to go back to Ephesus? Kind of where it all started in Asia Minor. And One of the New Testament scholars that I trust, because he's not a moron, is a guy named N.T. Wright. He's British, if that helps. And him and many others feel the same way, and I'm not going to tell you how they came to this conclusion. If you want to pull on that thread, you can do that in your own time. But he's quite convinced that Paul, now remember, this is Paul. I often refer to him as the heavyweight champion of the early church. Be like Paul. N.T. Wright is quite confident that Paul likely experienced a nervous breakdown while he was in Ephesus during that 3-year period. Now let me just add some inside baseball. Growing up, my father experienced 2 nervous breakdowns where he was hospitalized in a psychiatric hospital for months at a time. It's not good. And so N.T. Wright and others actually point to it's likely that Paul, man of great faith, I learned to endure the trials, everyone. Look at me, be like me. Had a nervous breakdown while he was in Ephesus that was so scarring that he couldn't even bring himself to go back to Ephesus on this final missionary journey. Which incidentally, on this final missionary journey, Paul declared that God's Holy Spirit had already told him that when he gets to Jerusalem, he's going to be arrested and he actually will be killed soon after. So he knew this was it. If he was going to go into Ephesus, say his farewells, this was the last chance, and he chose not to do it. So you want to talk about trials. When Paul says, I endured the trials, these trials seemingly were so extreme and so severe and so relentless that it likely caused him to experience a nervous breakdown. Now, we go, oh, really? That doesn't sound like the Bible. That doesn't sound like something that can happen to a great man of faith. Like, this is Paul. I mean, he wrote all those letters that we love to read and learn from and whatever. You know, what could possibly have been the cause of Paul's nervous breakdown? Well, could be the time that we talked about last week where he was in a town of Lystra and they dragged him out of the town and stoned him, not with pebbles, like real stones. This guy was really stoned. Hello, that's an old preacher's joke. Paul was stoned with some serious stones to the point where the people throwing the stones actually thought they killed him. So that could have tipped him over the edge. Could have been. Could have been the incessant onslaught from a group of Jewish zealots who made it their mission to keep following Paul around. When Paul headed into a new town or a new city, guess who was hot on his heels? Some Jewish religious leaders, and their mission was to make life miserable for Paul, to try and render him ineffective. They brought legal challenges to him. They incited riots with the crowds. That could have been a cause. Could have been the times where he was spent in a subhuman prison. That may have triggered a nervous breakdown. Could have been his illness and his health issues that he faced constantly. Could simply have been just the burden and the responsibility of being like an apostolic leader across all these churches. Or, my theory, tick E for all of the above. And yet, he didn't quit. Now, we don't know the specifics, but Paul actually, in his second letter to the church in Corinth, does allude to some of the stuff that he was dealing with. He wrote this to them. We think you ought to know, dear brothers and sisters, about the trouble we went through in the province of Asia. Now, we were crushed. These are not kindergarten words. We were crushed and overwhelmed beyond our ability to endure. And we thought we'd never live through it. In fact, we expected to die. It's a great thing to wake up in the morning thinking this is going to be in your very near future. But, here's the turning point. As a result, we stopped relying on ourselves and, say this with me, learned to rely on God, who, what? Raises the dead. Now, You've probably heard the cliche, God will never give you more than you can handle. You can buy a t-shirt on Etsy with that written on it. You'll pull up behind somebody, they've got the bumper sticker. God will never give you more than you can handle. Hello. Once again, I ask the question, are we reading the same Bible? Now, that cliche is almost true. But it shouldn't have a full stop on the end. It should have a comma. And it should sound like this. God will never give you more than you can handle, comma, on your own. God will often allow us to experience circumstances, seasons, where we are very crushed and overwhelmed, in the hope that we will learn to stop relying on ourselves and understand that me plus God is always the majority in every single situation, always the majority in every single season, always the majority in every single circumstance. Just us, we're probably not going to make it on our own, in our own strength. But if we learn, like Paul and his compatriots did, learn to rely on God, then sign me up for the valleys any day. If it's going to point me to a God who created the mountaintops, to a God who's stronger than anything we can even endure. So the first thing is to learn to live courageously. And then there's this one here, and this is just the two: live courageously and guard yourself. Paul, when he had to sit down, the leaders of the early church of Ephesus came to visit him. He continued with his instruction to them. So say this with me: guard yourselves and God's people. Now, you can go on to there and read the rest of it yourself. But he just makes this very clear. And incidentally, that's a military phrase, which in those times where the Romans were doing Roman things, they would have known about guards and about guarding and about warfare and about, that's an everyday thing. So he says, guard yourselves, and then as church leaders, guard the flock, sure. But that instruction is a very, very close mirror to something that Solomon gave instruction in his book of wise Proverbs. Guard your heart, say it with me, above all else. He doesn't even say in the top 10. Guard your heart in the top, make sure it's in the top 5. He literally says number 1, guard above all else, guard your heart. Because he knew something, and incidentally, by the way, I think you know it too. I think you already know the importance of this. And here's why I think you already know it, because heart damage is something we're all susceptible to, and it can come from the outside in, or it can come from the inside out. But some of you might not have used that language, but some of you've experienced some heart damage in your lifetime, and it almost certainly came either from the outside in or from the inside out. Now, we talked about 6 weeks ago a message about, it was called Set Free to Forgive. And unforgiveness and bitterness is one of the surefire ways, allowing that to fester and live on, one of the surefire ways for you to experience heart damage that's caused from the inside out. I mean, it might have been circumstances that happen from the outside in, but holding on to unforgiveness and allowing that bitterness feeds it, waters it, that root gets deeper and causes more damage to our heart over time. So first of all, we need to understand, we need to make sure we are regularly doing some open heart surgery and asking God to do some open heart surgery to get the stuff out of there that shouldn't have been in there in the first place. The stuff that's done damage, doing damage, and if it goes untended, will do more damage. That's super, super important. Guard your heart from the inside out. And the other thing, and you know this, guard your heart from the outside in. Monitor who and what you allow to penetrate inside your heart. Now, wise parents know this. Wise parents are very, very intentional about who they let their kids spend time with. No, you're not going for a sleepover at that person's house because I've met their parents. I mean, come on now. No, you're not going to hang out with your friends and watch K-pop Demon Hunters. You're just not doing that because it doesn't matter. It's just a cartoon. Listen, I'm not giving you parent advice. I'm giving you wise living advice. I'm not watching K-pop Demon Hunters. I don't need that stuff. Who needs that stuff in their house? But this idea of who we spend time with matters because those people will have an influence on what penetrates our heart. Now, let me shift the thing away from parents. Because here's the thing. I don't think every adult's realize that you never outgrow that. There's no magical age where other people no longer have an influence on you. Oh my God, thank God I made it to 25 years old because nobody and nothing's ever going to have a negative influence on my life ever again because I'm 25. I've outgrown that stuff. No. Now, what you can hopefully do is get better at managing, but we never outgrow the susceptibility to other people damaging our hearts. So guard who you let in, and then there's the importance of guarding what you let in. Now, has anyone ever heard the expression, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me? Right? Which sounds true until you discover it's not. Because words are way more damaging than sticks and stones. And some of you know this because you've had a dysfunctional parent say things to you, about you. You've had a boss say things to you. You've had a former close friend who's betrayed you and has been going around saying things about you. And here's the thing. Those words, if we go unchecked and we don't guard our heart, they can get inside. They can start renting space for free in our heart, taking up residence, and then they don't stop talking. Those words, they start telling you what you heard when you were growing up, that's actually who you are. And that becomes your narrative. That's your truth. And you start living out of that. Well, I guess that's who I am. I guess that's all I'm going to ever be. And those words, if you allow them to take up residence and remain resident, living rent-free in your heart, they will at best limit you and at worst take you out. And we're trying to learn how to continue, how to keep going. So this idea of guarding your heart, and if stuff's already gotten in there, work to get it out. And one of the most, can't believe they pay me to say this stuff. One of the most important and simplest things that you can do if you've got negative narratives that have taken up residence in your heart is learn what God says about you. Because that's actually what's true. That's actually what you're capable of. That's actually who you were created to be. And it might be a journey. It might be a process. You might need some professional assistance with that. I'm not talking about you open the Bible, you do the old thing with the paper Bible. It's called the kaplunk method, where you just let it kaplunk to a piece and you go, like, that's abracadabra stuff right there. I'm talking about, like, get into God's word. What does God say about who I am, who He's created to be, and make that your truth. Make that your narrative. I am a child of God. I am chosen. I am adopted. I am forgiven. I am placed in a position as the son and the daughter of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. That's who I am. That will help us finish well. And then I'll just say this one as a kind of a 2025 thing. Have you noticed in 2025 that not only does it, well, I'll just tell you my observation. I'm going to tell you what you think, but this is my observation. My observation in 2025 is that everyone seems to think that they need to have an opinion on everything, which is only part of the problem. Because we've cultivated this second part of the problem, that everyone thinks they need to share their opinion on everything. Well, you know what I think? Yeah, I now know what you think, but here's the thing. Knowing what someone thinks and caring about what they think shouldn't be the same thing. In fact, let me say it in a slightly more mature way because it feels like I'm punching someone and I'm not. I'm just saying it's a cultural phenomenon. Don't give everyone's opinion equal weight. That's my point. Like someone gives you their opinion and it's terrible, and you're wise enough to not take what they said and go ahead with it, and they say to you, oh, you didn't listen to me. Here's the language. Let me give you this one for free. Yes, I listened and I chose to ignore doing what you suggested. Those are two different things. I listened to every single word. Kind of wish I hadn't. 25 seconds of my life I'll never get back. But yeah, I listened. And it was terrible advice. Here's the thing. Like when I say weigh up people's opinions, because it matters in your heart. When I say weigh it up, I literally mean weigh it up. Like what sort of value does this have? And here's some criteria. What's the trust level with this person? Like are they someone that's actually earned the right to kind of give me advice? Because if they're just somebody, some rando, somebody, I'll be like, okay, no, fine, see you later. Weigh up their maturity. Like, are they spiritually mature, plus emotionally mature, plus relationally mature? And those are three separate things. I wish they weren't, but they are. Someone can memorize the Bible and be a terrible human. Oh, okay, sorry, I've just triggered somebody over here. Sorry about that. I think I'll move on here. Look at their experience. Now, here's the thing. You've got people maybe in your life who've got lots of experience, but it's not good experience. Don't take your marriage advice from the person that's just signed the 6th set of divorce papers. Oh yeah, they got plenty of experience. I've had 6 wives. Yeah, let me move on from that one. Don't take your financial advice from the person that just crashed their 4th business. Do you know what I'm saying? And then that leads on to this idea of fruit. Like, what sort of fruit is this person producing? If you want to experience more of God's best in your marriage, look to people that have great marriages. And here's the thing I can tell you about those people who have great marriages. They have worked their butts off. You don't fall accidentally backwards into a great marriage. You work and you work and you work and you work some more. If you want to get ahead in your finances, get with somebody who's demonstrating fruit in their finances, not somebody who inherited. No, someone that got it done and has done it the hard way. Follow the fruit. If you want to improve your relationship with Jesus, look for people who are demonstrating a great fruit in their lives following Jesus. And just ask them, what do you do? What have you done? They'll tell you. So, finally. And this one, and I've shared this before, and I can even remember some people coming to me specifically. This is Paul still writing to the church in Corinth. He's told them that when he was in Ephesus in Asia Minor, things did not go well, likely had a nervous breakdown. And he finishes with this, and I don't know if you can screenshot this. It's in the message notes section of our app. This can almost be like a life-saving verse that I'm about to show you, literally. It's one of my favorite and life-saving verses. We are pressed on every side by troubles. Some of you can relate to that. Oh yeah, tell me about it. But we are not crushed. We're perplexed, meaning I don't even understand this. But not driven to despair. We're hunted down, but never abandoned by God. We get knocked down, but we are not destroyed. Through suffering, our bodies continue to share in the death of Jesus so that the life of Jesus may also be seen.
We really hope you got a lot out of this message.
If you live in the Perth area, we'd love for you to join one of our live experiences. For times and directions, as well as information, head to our website, elevatechurch.me. For those of you beyond the Perth area, we'd love for you to connect with our online experience, which premieres every Sunday via YouTube and Facebook Live, and on demand immediately after. And to partner with us to reach more people by giving financially, head to our website, elevatechurch.me, and also download our Elevate Church AU app.